We'll start this off with a few very odd videos coming out from different sources around the Vatican. The first clip from Pope Francis's funeral, where we see behind what I'm assuming is the altar and two of the doors that lead into that area. Very oddly, you can see that it has upside down crosses on it. Multiple sources for years have stated that there's been a battle between good and evil within the hierarchy of the Vatican and the Catholic Church. Malachi Martin exposed some of this, and the circumstances around his death were pretty strange. All of his documents and material were taken from his house. That's no coincidence. Glenn Beck also stated that he experienced this battle between good and evil during his time visiting the Vatican.
Happened at the Vatican, I saw it. We were supposed to meet with the Pope, and I went and I met with several cardinals, I think the good cardinals, and I saw stuff that I had never seen before. That night, we were with, I don't even remember who they were, but they were the most Christ-like, cardinals and preachers or whatever they were. You could tell everybody's guard in that group, everybody's guard was up. And all of a sudden, and I'm not kidding you, the room dropped 10 degrees. And I happened to be looking at the door way across this huge room. And here comes this guy. So he was the main guy that, you had to get by if you were going to get to the Pope. And I said, holy cow, who is that guy? And the whole group of really nice guys turned around and looked at him. And one of them turned back and went, oh, you can feel that? And I said, oh, yeah. And they were like, oh, good sense on you. Oh, no, he's leading the opposition. So he's the guy, I think, that was helping thwart Benedict.
The lines between the physical and spiritual wars and realms are merging more and more. In my opinion, one of the most obvious areas we're seeing this is with UFO disclosure. Once again, the Vatican is brought right into the center of this topic, which would make sense if both the Vatican and alien disclosure play into the end times deceptions coming upon the earth that I believe multiple Bible prophecies allude to.
A while back, News Nation reported a claim from a Pentagon whistleblower that back during World War II, Pope Pius XII tipped off the U.S. government about the recovery of a partially intact UFO that Benito Mussolini's Italian government had discovered. So will the new Pope open the vault and share the secrets below the Vatican?
Strange things are happening in the skies, and it's not just the orbs or the UFOs and UAPs that people are seeing. Recently, what looked to be a portal was recorded over the skies in Europe. Mysterious blue spirals spotted over European skies. What was it? Of course, mainstream news sources came out instantly and said that this was from some sort of rocket.
A glowing spiral which was visible over the night sky in Europe is believed to have been caused by a SpaceX rocket. The cloud-like shape was visible for several minutes, confusing many who posted photographs to social media.
Rockets are filmed all the time, especially as SpaceX has been sending up many more rockets recently. And as we can see, these rockets don't look anything like the video that we saw coming out of Europe. That spiral honestly resembles a lot more the Norway spiral that happened back in 2009. And of course, the explanation for this phenomenon was a failed Russian rocket test. But as we'll look more into towards the end of this video, there are weapon systems that are hard to even fathom. Now back on the Earth again, there is a growing phenomenon which the Bible predicted, and it's happening more and more. People claiming they are the Christ or the coming enlightened one of a different religion that is here to lead the earth into the next spiritual revelation. Someone gaining more attention in this regard is Abdullah Hashem, who is a religious leader, the founder of the Ahmadi religion of peace and light. He states that he is the coming Mahdi, who is practically Islam's savior that they are expecting to come and further Islam across the entire earth. But he also says that he is the prophesied saviors or coming ones from practically every religion across the earth. And surprisingly enough, he actually has quite a few people following him and believing this.
I am Abdullah, the successor of Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, the successor of the Comforter Ahmed, the successor of Simon Peter, the successor of Muhammad, the successor of Jesus Christ. I am the true and legitimate Pope. I am the proof upon the Christians. I am the son of the Muslims through my father, and the son of the Christians and the Jews through my mother. I am the son of the East through my father, and the son of the West through my mother. I am like Zulkarnain, who with one horn in the East and one in the West, and I am the inheritor of all that lies between. I am more knowledgeable than any false pope, and I am appointed by name in the will of the prophets. My name is also on the tongue of Isaiah, who prophesied of the righteous servant, and he said, he will see his offspring and prolong his days, and the will of the Lord will prosper in his hand.
Now, this guy has apparently healed at least one person. We'll watch that in this next video. This appears to be more of just something that was put out to try to give him credibility, which it's most likely absolutely false, but the Bible does predict there will be false signs, wonders, and miracles in the last days, so we should be on alert for that. But in this case, I don't think that's what's going on. It's more that this guy is just fulfilling the prophecy of the false Christ that will be coming towards the last days.
Hi there, this is Sharon Duffing at the Minnesota State Capitol. It is Friday, April 4th, 2025, and I'm here to double check on what everybody's been talking about on social media, is this plaque in honor of our Governor, Tim Walz, and it is from people that are supportive of his efforts, and there it is. Right here in the East Hall, lower level. And it reads, the Democratic Coalition of Satan Worshippers thanks Governor Tim Walz for not standing in the way of spreading Satanism in the state capitol building. Satan has a special place for you. And that's what it says.
What is going on in the world? In the same week, we have had Pope Francis pass, and many people have raised the alarm about this being the last pope and how the end is here. In the same week, we've had the WEF announce the resignation of Klaus Schwab, and then headlines like these all of a sudden appear. As a result, the discussion about who will replace him and what will their ideological beliefs be has been a hot topic. And now we learn this. UK scientists to launch outdoor geoengineering experiments. One article reads, UK scientists are to launch outdoor geoengineering experiments as part of a £50 million government-funded program. The experiments will be small-scale and rigorously assessed, according to Advanced Research and Invention Agency, ARIA, the UK government agency backing the plan, and will provide critical data needed to assess the potential of the technology. The program, along with another £11 million project, will make the UK one of the biggest funders of geoengineering research in the world. We are living in dangerous times where technology has so advanced that in some cases, humans are now attempting to be creator, or at the very least, to modify God's natural order of creation. Now, if you'll remember, in 2023, Time magazine published an article titled, "Why Billionaires Are Obsessed with Blocking Out the Sun."
Bill Gates, for instance, backed a project by Harvard University scientists to test an idea to spray calcium carbonate into the atmosphere in the skies over northern Scandinavia in 2021. The project was ultimately canned after outcry from local indigenous groups and environmentalists. Jeff Bezos put Amazon's supercomputer capabilities to work modeling the effects of plans to inject huge amounts of sulfur dioxide, SO2, into the atmosphere later that year. Earlier this month, Dustin Moskovitz, a billionaire Facebook co-founder, plowed $900,000 into funding for scientists in Mali, Brazil, Thailand, and other countries to study the potential effects of solar geoengineering. Even the smaller fry are getting in on the action, with venture capitalists giving a combined $750,000 to a company pledging to implement a planetary solar geoengineering project using SO2.
Now, humans have always had a fascination, or rather a sinful urge to be in control. Ask yourself this: is it God's design that these things should be done?
So much is happening now, and it's all happening so fast. We are now seeing the false Christs that Jesus warned us about in Matthew 24 starting to step forward, and with all the other stuff, there is this news out of England. Chemtrails have been happening for a while now. It's way past conspiracy. There are states here in the U.S. that have banned such practices. Tennessee, the state I live in, is one of them. It's not even a secret that this is happening anymore. So what is this? To me, it looks like chemtrails are now going mainstream and are really going into high gear. I also think they are about to use a new chemical that will have such an effect that there will be no way to deny it. What's about to happen now is going to be something different and have an effect way beyond what they've been doing up till now. You may have seen this article from Israel 365 News on our site. It states,
"The government of the United Kingdom is expected to carry out open-air experiments that will attempt to dim the sun. Referred to as geoengineering, scientists hope to counteract global warming by spraying aerosolized particles high into the stratosphere to deflect a small fraction of the sun's energy away from the Earth. The Advanced Research and Invention Agency has set aside $66.5 million for geoengineering research. The idea is to mimic the effects of massive volcanic eruptions, which have lowered global temperatures in a phenomenon known as volcanic winter. Violent eruptions can send volcanic ash and sulfuric acid droplets into the atmosphere, obscuring the sun and raising Earth's albedo, increasing the reflection of solar radiation. Most recently, the 1991 explosion of Mount Pinatubo in the Philippines, the second largest eruption of the 20th century, cooled global temperatures by about 0.9 degrees Fahrenheit for about 2 to 3 years. The article goes on to state, climatologists are also concerned that tinkering with the climate could unintentionally disrupt the circulation of ocean currents that regulate our weather. Implementing it in one country can trigger rain and extreme weather across borders. It is also unknown how blocking the sun will affect crops and ecosystems. Another key issue is what happens when the SAI is discontinued. The termination shock would cause a spike in temperatures, creating huge problems for future generations who did not consent to the practice. So once you start, you can't stop.
Now, if all of that hasn't raised red flags for you yet, guess what this project is named?
The UK has officially launched a geoengineering program under the acronym SATAN, Stratospheric Aerosol Transport and Nucleation, and yes, it involves spraying chemicals into the stratosphere. While the mainstream media continues gaslighting the public, pretending chemtrails are a tinfoil conspiracy, British researchers have been quietly releasing sulfur dioxide 15 miles above our heads under a project literally named Satan. You can't make this up. This isn't a conspiracy theory anymore. It's a conspiracy fact. This is government-sanctioned weather manipulation sold to the public as climate intervention using the same compound, sulfur dioxide, that's been linked to acid rain, respiratory damage, and environmental collapse. And they're doing it to save us.
Out of all that is going on, especially what was highlighted at the beginning of this podcast, you may be wondering, why am I talking about this specifically? There are 2 reasons. The first, we're told in 2 places in the Bible that the sun will be dimmed. One of them is in Revelation, and it will be caused by wormwood. The second place is found in Joel chapter 2. The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood, before the great and the terrible day of the Lord comes. Now, this could be referencing what we just talked about in Revelation. However, the thing that stands out to me is that it says, before, the great and the terrible day of the Lord comes. Everywhere in the Bible that I know of that says, the great and the terrible day of the Lord, is in reference to the tribulation time period. And here, it is saying before that. Again, Joel could be talking about the actual second advent, which would make this a reference to what's talked about in Revelation, but also, maybe not. The second reason I'm talking about this is because there is something else to think about here. After the rapture, tribulation will begin with the breaking of the seals once the treaty between Israel and the Antichrist is signed. The third seal is global famine, the likes of which has never been seen before.
Well, this story is absolute bonkers. I don't know who the Dr. Evils that come up with this kind of stuff. So, experiments to dim the sun are to be given a green light by the UK government. Here's the headlines from the Manchester Evening News. Yes, scientists are planning on dimming the sun in a bid to curb global warming. The UK government is set to announce funding of up to £50 million of funding for the sun dimming experiments in the coming weeks, as the Telegraph reports. They say it's all about limiting the rising temperatures. Okay. Dane Wigington, founder of geoengineeringwatch.org and the great man behind The Dimming, which is a great documentary film about this exact subject. So who better than to talk about all of this? So the way that the Telegraph is reporting this, the way the UK is ready to move on this, Dane, it sounds like this has never happened before and they're just going to try it for the first time.
That's exactly how they want it to sound, Clayton, so that they could pretend that they might do this someday, when in fact these operations have been fully deployed since immediately after World War II. So they continue this grand facade, not just the UK, but also in the US, with what the US EPA head posted last week, that he's going to investigate the Make Sunsets group, as we discussed off air, two clowns from Silicon Valley that launched a few balloons. So they continue this grand facade, governments in both countries pretending this hasn't been ongoing for decades already, with catastrophic results manifesting worse by the day.
So what they're saying is it's all about global warming. So they're really worried about rising temperatures on the Earth, which we've fully debunked here on this show, that even if the Earth has risen a little bit, it's compared to what? Compared to what in history? We're going through these natural cooling and warming periods. And so they're going to protect England? If they do this, it would only be them that would be protected by this madness?
You can't just geoengineer over your own country, Clayton. You're correct about that. Bottom line is you affect the entire planet, and they know this. So we have documents at geoengineeringwatch.org, government documents, former presidential documents, Senate documents. In fact, one is 800 pages long, former U.S. Senate document from 1978, describing the scope and scale of these operations even then, and the intergovernmental cooperation even then, and even between, quote, otherwise adversarial nations, China, Russia, U.S. Historical fact of record. Soviet climate engineering scientists were touring U.S. climate engineering facilities during the height of the Cold War in the 60s, and our scientists touring theirs. Again, they continue this grand facade. In regard to the state of the climate, what we would encourage people to do from all sides of the fence is to simply follow this inarguable trajectory. How can we have any reasonable conversation about the climate, any legitimate conversation about the climate, without first and foremost addressing the climate engineering elephant in the equation? So from all sides of the fence, we should agree on that. And the whole environmental community, the AOCs, the Al Gores, their denial of what's taking place in our skies is criminal hypocrisy. You can't have any claim to have any concern about the environment from any perspective without addressing this first. This is the single most destructive human activity ever deployed by our species.
And so what chemicals are we talking about here that they would be using in the sky to try to dim the sun? And how devastating would it be to human beings, to the soil, to plant life, to animal life?
If I could change the context to is and has been.
Is and has been. I should have said that, yes. for decades. They've been doing this, is currently. And so really no difference than what they've already been doing.
Yes, they're simply trying to keep the facade going that they might do this someday. So we know, we're not speculating, theorizing, or hypothesizing. We know what they're dispersing from hundreds of lab tests all over the world. We took a National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration flying lab to altitude, top scientists in it, all in the film to dimming. So we know we have aluminum, nanoparticles, and by the way, the smaller the particle, the more lethal they are to everything, the entire web of life. And none of the air quality testing, none of it identifies this mountain of toxic materials, Clayton, by design. The whole system is designed not to show this because they test for 10 microns generally, occasionally 2.5 microns. Nanoparticles are inconceivably smaller. They go completely under the radar by design. Aluminum, barium, strontium, manganese, polymer fibers, surfactants, graphene. Clayton, have you ever seen, after a rain event, foaming runoff down gutters?
Yes.
Okay, those are surfactants, and that can be extreme on occasion. In fact, we have massive sea foaming events, which is the dispersion of these materials over our oceans. And again, we have a whole so-called science community pretending that this is some natural phenomenon, just like they're pretending the weather and temperature whiplash. Clayton, have you seen the radical degree to which temperatures are swinging back and forth, up and down, 50 and 60 degrees in a day? Have you seen that?
Oh, I've not only seen it, I've felt it. Or one day you're wearing shorts and suddenly the next day it's snowing, which is exactly what happened here last week.
Brand new science studies out this week from nature.com citing these radical swings and stating they just don't know why this is happening. And this is where the true insanity of our species and the whole structure of our system in academia becomes apparent, when the so-called scientists can't seem to see the elephant in the sky. And these radical swings are from patented processes of chemical ice nucleation for weather modification. These are endothermic, aka energy absorbing materials. Again, patented processes dispersed in a cloud moisture, creates a cold, dense layer of air that descends to the surface, can be sometimes only a few hundred feet thick. And that's why you have also, Clayton, have you seen all the ice storms we have now and the constant massive hail? Constant. Have you noted that?
I think we talked a little bit about that, and I know I experienced this massive hailstorm with these, huge. I had to get my new truck into some sort of protective area so that I wouldn't be destroyed after I just bought the darn thing, and they were huge.
Yes, it's now become the norm. Insurance companies are canceling everywhere for hail specifically. Again, that's chemical ice nucleating operations. That's part of climate engineering. I mean, the scope and scale of these programs, the degree to which they're derailing the entire hydrological cycle, is inconceivable. And about global dimming, the stated purpose in the report you cited, that figure, based on various science studies, can range anywhere between 20 and 30% already today. What's that mean? Doesn't mean a 20 to 30% drop in visible light. It's a drop in direct sunlight. And that is the expressed purpose of these programs: solar radiation management, stratospheric aerosol injection, cloud albedo enhancement. So that's today, right now. And that's what brought me into this, Clayton, was my home, off-grid home, which was on the cover of Home Power Magazine, world's largest renewable energy magazine. My loss of solar power was 60, 70, 80%. I knew that couldn't be just, quote, condensation, certainly not just jet exhaust. And by the way, that's a narrative that's being propagated by some circles now that is incredibly alarming to us. We're so far past that point. This is not jet exhaust in our skies. It's a sprayed particulate dispersion. We have up-close film footage of these aircraft at altitude, nozzles visible, turning dispersions on and off. So there's a concerted effort right now to try to muddy the water, still claiming this is, quote, jet exhaust, and it covers our entire horizon. And we extrapolated, Clayton, how much material is being dispersed based on hundreds of lab tests in Minnesota, working with the University of Minnesota. And it appears globally, based on the research we did in Minnesota and extrapolating that globally on an annual basis, somewhere in the range of 40 to 60 million tons of highly toxic nanoparticles are being sprayed into our skies annually, which is making every single function of the planet's life support systems worse, not better. It's damaging already damaged systems. This is a fast track to planetary omnicide, Clayton, if they allow these programs to continue.
It's absolutely devastating. I mean, you think, well, England doesn't even have enough sunlight as it is. You want to dim more of it? How much more damage can you already do? It's disgusting. We talk about the aluminum piece here. Philip, our esteemed technical director here and producer, has a background in molecular biology. We were talking after your appearance on the show a few weeks ago about aluminum, and I didn't even know it. It was after our show we were just chatting here about, because you continue to always blow us away, but after the show we were talking about how this aluminum. Philip, can you explain again what we're talking about here? So you think, it's fine on its own if it's just there in the soil, but you go explain that.
So aluminum, like just metallic aluminum, is it doesn't really do a whole lot to the environment other than just be there. But once your soil acidity hits about 5.5 pH, it becomes soluble. Then plants take it up, and then you've got soluble aluminum, which is just devastating to plant life, and then anything that eats it. So then you've basically like taken a metal and turned it environmentally toxic. And 5.5 pH is not very acidic. It doesn't take a whole lot of acidity in the soil to make it soluble.
Everything Philip just stated is exactly on target, exactly correct. So we know that aluminum does not exist in free form naturally in the environment, always bonded to other elements. It's highly reactive. If it's in free form and it's in our precipitation, that's means it's been mined and refined and dispersed, period. Bioavailable aluminum, highly toxic to all life forms, period, no exceptions. In regard to the pH, and that's completely correct as well, 5.5 is when it becomes reactive again and bioavailable. Precipitation now is somewhere in the range, if it's untainted, of 5-6. We're walking a razor's edge here from precipitation that is just acidic enough to start freeing up this metal that's being dispersed in our skies. And now it's already in bioavailable form. And we have peer-reviewed study to prove that this bioavailable aluminum in our rain is killing root systems. Clayton and Philip, have you seen how many trees tip over now every time the wind blows? Have you noticed that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The root systems are dying back, just like their crowns are dying back. This bioavailable toxic metal in the rain is killing soil microbiome, which is killing root systems. And there are more life forms below the surface of the soil than above. People don't realize that. You can't sterilize the soil and expect to grow food for very long. And we have other ramifications as well that are ongoing and worsening by the day. Climate engineering operations are destroying the ozone layer. It's not hairspray cans. CFCs are a problem, but it's an ant compared to an elephant when we look at climate engineering operations. So climate engineering and the oxidative particles they're dispersing in the atmosphere, along with the frequency transmissions used to manipulate them, is destroying the ozone layer. No, it's not getting better. Again, that's more smoke and mirrors. Even though the sun feels incredibly intense on your skin, on surfaces, we have more car deaths every year because that thermal energy penetration is heating cars far faster than people have been used to it. So the signs are everywhere. It's burning the bark off of trees. The cambium layers are being burnt off trees from tip to trunk. And they're telling us it's better. So again, so many people will ignore their senses, their eyesight. They can see what's happening in the skies. If someone will just tell them, don't worry, everything's fine, go to sleep. The ramifications from what's happening in our skies can't be overstated. And the amount of materials we're breathing with every breath we take, again, how is this not an immediate fight for life, Clayton?
You're right. Well, I think it's absolutely intentional. To me, it's the intentional population control, intentional destruction of our planet that these globalists are doing to us. I don't see it. I can't see it any other way.
And again, back to what we're breathing in every breath we take, we have recent peer-reviewed study that cited that we may be inhaling, depending on the circumstances and location, as many as 20 million nanoparticles in a single breath. That's inconceivable. It sounds impossible, and most people might not understand how that could be. But you have to consider that you can fit as many as 100,000 nanoparticles across the width of a single human hair. These particles are the most lethal of all, and they're going completely unreported. I've been in high-level EPA meetings at the California State Capitol, arranged by congressional reps, top EPA officials there, told to my face the entire system is rigged. They're told to test for combustion particulates only, PM10 only. The rest of the samples go out the window. So again, the system has been designed not to show this incredibly lethal, ongoing dispersion of materials into our atmosphere that's virtually annihilating all forms of the planet's life support systems, our food, our water. And again, it's building up in us. I want to stress that. These are bioavailable and bioaccumulative, so they're highly inflammatory in our systems. And we have peer-reviewed study to prove, even in the case of the nano particles of plastic. Have you seen recent studies, Clayton, that are reporting the microplastics building up in our systems?
Yeah, it's incredibly disturbing. They're finding it in male reproductive organs. I mean, they're finding it everywhere.
Yes, and everywhere from hearts, livers, brains, placentas, and polymer nanofibers are a primary element named in climate engineering patents. Yes, we have decomposing plastic around the world. We're not denying that. But when we have particles that appear to be manufactured, and we will soon post an exchange between myself and a microbiologist from Rensselaer Polytechnic in New York, identifying some of the samples that we took from altitude as being manufactured particles, period. This is not just decomposition. Again, the proof is indisputable at this point. We're in a fight for life. So again, the notion that this is something they might do someday, I challenge people to use your sense of reason and logic and look up. Our skies look like something from a science fiction movie most of the time now. And this is another major factor, Clayton, where the damage to the planet needs to be considered in this equation, that these operations are diminishing the planet's ability to produce natural cloud cover. And that problem should be obvious. That's part of how the planet cools itself. And climate engineering is thwarting that process. Again, we're back to the pharmaceutical approach. And this is a weapon, by the way. Again, it's a covert weapon of the controllers because they can and are bringing populations to their knees without those populations ever even knowing they're under assault. But if we diminish or irreparably damage the planet's natural cloud-making processes, we're done. It's that simple. So again, the ramifications from these programs, virtually in every single foundational factor of what allows life to exist on this planet, this is a real and immediate threat of planetary omnicide.